out. Okay. For those of you who are watching, you're watching B-roll. If you're watching on the mainstreams, not on locals, you're watching the B-roll of me on, that's Highway 15 in Pennsylvania, just inside the Pennsylvania border. And the video and pictures and stuff don't do it justice. It's really quite gorgeous. So sometimes, truckers are spoiled with some of the most beautiful landscapes and views that you'll ever see. And good morning, Sonia, Jesse. Hey, everybody. Sonia's confused. August 7th at 10. Yeah, no, I had a little issue and toggled the wrong thing. And but it's good. Every time I go to start my stream and I screw something up, I'm forced to learn something. So, which is, as I said from the very beginning, I didn't have time to invest in building out another podcast platform. So this one, we're all going to learn on the fly. I'm learning from you, you're learning from me, and I'm learning from all of my mistakes, of which there are numerous, numerous mistakes. Anyways, a good morning and a fabulous morning to all of you. And I hope this good morning is the best Saturday morning of your life. It's going to be lots of fun and all positivity and cracking jokes at certain people that are a little bit sad, but whatever. And by the way, when we make fun of some of our political leaders and whatever, it's not necessarily, at least from my perspective, out of malice. And, sometimes just people do and say stupid things. So let me just get the audio set up. By the way, I haven't been canceled yet. Well, not fully. Hopefully I will be eventually. You can still listen to this on Spotify. So if you are walking the dog or driving a truck or whatever, in the office working, by all means, go to Spotify. And I guess it's also on Apple Podcasts and all like the major podcast platforms. I don't know. I haven't invested too much time in the infrastructure. I just did a plug and play to test it. It's a beautiful day here. Global boiling. Yeah, what's so funny? Last night it was cold. Last time I streamed, I had to wear a hoodie. Last night it was cold, but whatever. I'm optimistic for the future, and welcome to the Freedom Coffee live stream, where we all celebrate the freedoms that we have, and we work on expanding those freedoms in the future. And how do we do that? Well, there's two steps. The first, you just have to have a cup of coffee, right? The cup of coffee is integral to all of this, because change starts when you're not in a state of anxiety, but you're in a state of positivity and calm and relax. And the second thing is, after we sip our cup of coffee together, we're all going to be in a positive mindset and be able to deal with kind of life's problems. So, 1, 2, 3, go. All right. So, the other thing is, please like, share, and subscribe this. Rocky was on the floor, climbed up, looked at Ben, and said hi. Okay, so Rocky's a bird. And he is adorable and apparently one of my biggest fans. So thank you very much, Rocky. And Rocky apparently is also running for Prime Minister, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute. But I want to first start on a positive note. Here, at least, it's beautiful out. It's maybe a little bit cooler than I like, because I like things quite hot. But it's sunny. It's a gorgeous day out. I hope it's like that wherever you are. But it is the summer in most places. Most places that are watching this stream. So it's always important to remember all the good things, right? And the fact that it's not minus 40 degrees and everything is beautiful out and all that sort of stuff. This week I did Political Bitcoin Hour on Wednesday at 1 o'clock with Brandon Gentili. We do it on Twitter every week. It's a Twitter space. It goes for an hour, and this week it went for 4. So there clearly seems to be an appetite amongst my friends in Bitcoin to talk about some of the political things now that Bitcoin is becoming a political topic, and it's something we need to address. And we also need to learn how to message against, and we need to learn when they're messaging against us as well, which we're going to talk about in a second. The other thing is, I got so many questions this week about or questions, comments, all that sort of thing. What do you think about the Blackface, Trudeau separation? He has separated from his wife, whatever her name is, Sophie. I'm not really into the drama of stuff, so I don't really... I know she did some weird singing stuff when he elected. That's all I know about her. And her family's a very wealthy family from Quebec. And anyways, so people were asking me, and I just kind of, I'll reiterate the same point here. This is nothing new. They separated, I thought it was 2.5 years ago. It turns out it's 4 years ago. She's been living with her new boyfriend for the past 2 years, and I guess they're getting serious. And so that's it. And Trudeau can now go live with his boyfriend, right? So everybody's happy. It's a win-win for everybody. And you know what I was thinking? I wonder if, how brazen is the Liberal Party going to be with their identity politics? Do you think Trudeau will come out as LGBT running into the next election? Like, that's how desperate he'll be, that he'll have to say, okay, I got to come out. The pressure's on, right? And nobody will care. That's right, Sonia, honk honk. It's like, I don't know. Anyways. So I don't really have much more to say about that. I'm very libertarian on that sort of stuff. Let people do what they want in their private lives. A little joke just because Trudeau's an asshole. But other than that, who cares? They got a family, they got kids, whatever. Let them do their own thing. And that's it. When is Jagmeet leaving his? I can't read that word. Wait. When is Jagmeet leaving his wife for JT? No, that's not a thing. But there's other stuff. But again, people's private life. I don't really. You joke a little bit about it, but it's not malicious. And whatever. Who really cares? Let them do their things, right? But it's amazing how many people around the world picked up on that and started attacking him for that. And I thought, of all the things to attack Blackface for, how about the Blackface, or even that, how about the freezing of our bank accounts and setting a precedent that has now been replicated around the world? It started in Canada, the freezing of all our bank accounts and credit cards and all your assets so you couldn't transact. The Brazilian government did that after Lula clearly won a very, very legitimate election. Didn't cheat at all. It was 100% legitimate in Brazil, because Brazilian elections are always completely legitimate. And so this leftist criminal, I shouldn't say that, but he was in jail, so maybe I should, but the fact that when Lula was legitimately elected, there was a trucker protest around all of Brazil and sealing off borders and stuff like that. And what did they do? They froze the bank accounts, exactly as they did in Canada. And I believe they did the same thing in Iran shortly after. The mullahs went after people's bank accounts because they were protesting. Usually in Iran, they're protesting because they want, basic human rights. Just the most basic human rights. But are we much better when people like Blackface are freezing people's assets and bank accounts? I don't know. That sounds like, in the modern world, that to me sounds like a massive violation of human rights if you cannot transact because of the nature of how our world works. Cheryl says he was installed. Are you talking about Lula? Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, they're all installed. Somebody asked me about one of our politicians in Canada early before I started the stream. I'm not going to say names because whatever. People get upset with me. But saying, is so-and-so really going to do X, Y, Z? And I said, so-and-so is going to do exactly what his special interests and the lobbyists are telling him to do. Unfortunately, that's the problem with our system right now, that the lobby class has so much power that, when you become a leader of a party, an elected official, whatever, you're kind of beholden to that. That's why they hate Trump so much, because he's, first president in a long time who's independently wealthy and doesn't have to be beholden to the special interests, right? Whether you like him or not. That's why he's... anti-establishment. It's so funny to see all these kind of lefty people who, and I'm not saying that maliciously right now, but like the lefty people kind of like, anti-establishment and freedom people. I'm thinking back to like hippie, Grateful Dead, peace, love, you just got to be your own person sort of thing. They finally have an anti-establishment person who ran for president. What did they do? They went completely in line with the corporate establishment and did and promulgated exactly what they wanted. But anyways, Sonia, how do these people sleep at night? It's simple, because they're just subjective from a different perspective, and they think everybody on the other side is crazy, and they won't listen to people on the other side. And I think that's why you're starting to see people who are on the more center-right side, if you want to say. You see people who are not necessarily conservative, but they're more, they may be fiscally conservative, but they may have liberal tendencies, but they're all aligning with people who, it's the first time I've seen social conservatives and people who are not social conservatives coming together on issues, because at least they'll talk to people on the other side, and they find common ground. But the political left, if we want to use that term, which I've explained many times why I hate it, but they're much more collectivist. Everybody comes in line, and you have to do exactly what they say, or you're out of the cult, because they do operate like a cult. So, anyways. All right, let's talk a little about Bitcoin. And I know a lot of you are not Bitcoiners, and that's why I try to keep the Bitcoin conversations. I'll try to talk about that more in Twitter Spaces or the Political Bitcoin Hour, but or in this book, Honking for Freedom, the trucker convoy that gave us hope, and it also gave us Bitcoin on the world stage from a freedom perspective, because it was the only money that worked, and it was the only donations that got directly to the truckers, and special props and lots of love to Caribou, who I got to talk to this week actually, and reach out and say hello for all the blood, sweat, and tears that he went through to try to get Bitcoin directly into the hands of truckers, and he did so, and he was successful in doing that, and everybody else who helped him. I don't want to name names because people are like anonymity in the Bitcoin space. Unfortunately, Caribou is, along with me, a defendant in a legal case, in this class action suit, where the government is using lawfare through proxies to target us, and as a result, he's I guess kind of in the public sphere a little bit, but we'll see what happens in court anyway. So 2 chapters in this book tell the entire Bitcoin story, honkingforfreedom.com. Anyways, okay, so normally I don't talk a lot about Bitcoin in here, but I know some of you have been orange-pilled because some of you are in the Discord, and in the Discord we do have a Bitcoin channel, and some of you have been sharing information, and it's really great. It's awesome to see some of you. I always remember Risa, because Risa was the first person locally here who I think I was the one who orange-pilled her. It might have been myself and DJ Satoshi. And now she's running a node, and now she's like knee-deep into Bitcoin and trying to tell everybody else about Bitcoin. And, she's, middle-class mother in the suburbs sort of thing, who really didn't have interest in Bitcoin until the Freedom Convoy. And she's not the last one. She was just the first, and there are many to follow along with her. So, but anyways, this week we've seen a couple of things happen. So first, I want to start with this, and I just posted about it on Twitter. There was, some people are perceiving it, not everybody, but a lot of people are perceiving as Joe Biden did a gambit with a Biden mug with laser eyes that weren't orange, by the way. They were red, like the devil. And he takes, I can't remember what he said, he takes a sip out of a cup and he puts it on the desk, and he said basically nothing, which is what you would expect from somebody of his mental capacity at this point. And because the mug had his face in 2024, I guess this is his announcement that he's still going to be alive in 2024, he had, red eyes on the mug, and some people have interpreted that as, oh, he's in on Bitcoin. I don't think so. They're seeing it as an endorsement for Bitcoin, and I don't think so. I think what you're seeing is the exact opposite of an endorsement. This is what often happens in politics. The number one thing that politicians are always looking for, especially on issues that can be contentious amongst their competing special interest groups, is they're looking for plausible deniability. So they're looking to signal in a direction that, oh, we're in support of XYZ, but they're really not. They're just trying to capture that base of support and keep as much of them on board as possible, but it's deceptive, and they won't actually say it, right? So the lesson, I think, is this is not an endorsement. It's the opposite. And in politics in general, I've been trying to tell people, at least based on my experience, if they don't, by they meaning your candidate, person who's running an office, whatever, or in the States, I guess, if they're running for a judgeship or sheriff or whatever, if they don't say it directly and explicitly that they support or endorse a policy, they're just signaling, and it's fake. It's just fake. It's just to try to retain the people within that base, but they have absolutely zero intention of actually supporting it. Because how many times, even when they say explicitly they're going to have XYZ position on a policy, they're lying 50% of the time anyways, right? In Canada, we had this GST before. I think it was Chrétien said we're not going to increase the GST or whatever it was. It's many years ago. Well, he did the exact opposite. Or George Bush Sr., no new taxes. Well, he increased taxes. So that's when they actually say it. And people are now grasping at, a picture on a mug with devil eyes. Then no, I don't think that's an endorsement. And I think what we're seeing is you're seeing play out online. There's a couple of YouTube channels that have had their Bitcoin channels either deleted or many of their videos scrubbed. I think Max Kaiser just talked about it, posted earlier today or last night about it, that many of his early videos were scrubbed about Bitcoin, all those years of work. And a couple of other people weighed in that their Bitcoin channels have been removed from YouTube. Well, how does that happen? What happens? Well, we know from two sources at least. One were leaked documents to Disclose TV, and the other was RFK's testimony in, was it the Senate or I think it was the Senate hearing, if I'm not mistaken. He was testifying, he was testifying about censorship the week before, and he also disclosed what the Biden administration has been doing. And this, now everything makes sense. What has the Biden administration been doing? They've been putting political pressure on the social media companies like Facebook, Google, who knows who else, Twitter as well, that if they don't remove certain content that the political class, the Biden administration, doesn't like, then they may look at revisiting Section 230, right, to remove the immunity for a platform to remain, quote, apolitical. They don't want Facebook to be apolitical. The Biden administration wants it to be a hard D-political. So is this another example, what we're seeing with the Bitcoin channels being scrubbed from YouTube, is this direct interference from the Biden administration dictating what content can go or cannot go on the server of a private company. I'm pretty sure that's exactly, precisely the definition of fascism. That's exactly what it is, right? Utilizing the government to put pressure, political pressure, on private institutions to make sure they're working in coordination with one another, right? And people hear the word fascism, they think it's, Nazi Germany. The fascists were the Italians, as Mussolini was the fascist, right? But Nazis were the socialists. But the point is, this ain't good. This is not good at all. And it's just another example of everything that they projected onto the previous administration, they are guilty of themselves, right? And at least Trump, when he was putting pressure on them, he was publicly saying in rallies, if they continue censoring anybody, he would look at removing Section 230 provisions, which I don't think is a good idea, by the way. But he publicly said it, that maybe we should look at it. And it wasn't in one direction. But this is how deceptive the political class is. You can see the Biden administration doing it quietly behind the scenes through threats. The same way Biden threatened Edward Snowden. Does everybody know why Edward Snowden is in Russia? I was shocked at this. I mean, this was many, many years ago. But when Edward Snowden was looking for a country to go to, he had countries around the world that were willing to take him in and give him refuge against prosecution in the United States, and were going to ensure that he wasn't extradited. And every country that extended that offer to Edward Snowden, they would get a call from the U.S. government, somebody in the U.S. government, and telling them why they're going to suffer repercussions if they bring Edward Snowden and give him protection. The person who was making that call to all those countries, because there's a whole list of them, it wasn't just Ecuador. Ecuador was Julian Assange. Well, Ecuador also offered for Snowden, but it was a whole long list of countries. And the person who was making those personal phone calls directly to the ambassadors or presidents of those countries and telling them what the political ramifications will be, it's a guy named, I have his name here, a guy named Joe Biden. Yeah, Joe Biden, Mr. Burisma, Mr. We need to get rid of the prosecutor, we needed to do $1 billion deal, so I got the right guy in. Well, Joe Biden was also calling the leader of every country that was going to bring in Edward Snowden and said, if you bring him in, you're going to have sanctions, we're going to pull funding, we're going to do who knows whatever else, right? Whatever threats that he was issuing. There's your good guy with your laser eyes. And the only country that said, up yours was Russia. Now, that is not an endorsement of Russia or Putin. I'm neutral on what's going on in the world right now. Not neutral, but I just don't want to get into it. But it was Joe Biden that was doing that, right? So this is the same guy who some people are getting excited that he put red devil eyes on a mug, and that was seen as a signal to be an endorsement for Bitcoin. I don't think it was. I think it's typical of what happens in politics. It's the exact opposite. Have a wonderful day. Sonia's got to go. Peace, love, freedom, and hope. I love you too. We'll talk to you soon, Sonia. All right, so that's the first bit of Bitcoin news. And then the next bit, I'm going to have to cut today a little bit short because I got a meeting at 11 o'clock. Ron DeSantis, who we all love as governor and are confused why he's running for president, but Ron DeSantis, and really, truly love him as governor. He's great. He made an announcement yesterday, gave a speech, whatever it was, and he said, Biden's war on Bitcoin and crypto will end when I am president. So a little asterisk for some of you who are here, who are kind of new to Bitcoin, that we've talked about it, that Bitcoin and crypto are two different things. A lot of the Bitcoiners are really hostile, not a lot, some of the Bitcoiners are really hostile towards people in the crypto space with some legitimate reasons, some legitimate justification. I choose not to be hostile. I let people do what they want with their money. I don't necessarily agree, but people don't agree with what I do with my money too. So it's a two-way street. But anyways, he mentions Bitcoin and crypto that will Biden's war on Bitcoin and crypto will end when he's president. I don't think he'll be president this time around, but I just listen, they're all going to come together and be on the same team. That's why I also don't get involved in the vitriol Trump versus DeSantis stuff, because I know they all like each other, and I know they're all on the same team, and because I know some of those people in Florida, and I've met with some of them numerous times when I go down there, and everybody kind of loves each other, and right now they're just in campaign mode, so for me it's just noise. But look at it this way, from a Bitcoin perspective. You have Vivek Ramaswamy, who is really super smart guy. So you have Vivek, who is spoke at Bitcoin 2023, is in on Bitcoin. You have DeSantis, who made CBDCs illegal for transactional purposes in the state of Florida, and he also made it legal to do wallet-to-wallet real estate purchases in the state of Florida. My friend Charlie was one of the first people to do one of those transactions. He's an attorney down there. And I'm going to bring in a Bitcoin space sometime soon to talk about it for some of you in political Bitcoin. You have RFK, who spoke at the Bitcoin conference, who really gave an epic speech, which is, I believe, historical in nature and will be viewed very favorably upon him and his legacy in years in the future. And then you have old man Biden LARPing as a Bitcoiner, the same guy who threatens everybody he doesn't like, and I think he's putting, Section 230 pressures on alternative media, which would be consistent with his behavior, as we talked about with Edward Snowden. And then you have BlackRock, which I'm no fan of. I shouldn't say fan. I don't like the rhetoric that came out of BlackRock and this ESG nonsense. I actually explained why I think they did it. I think they tried to do it for pragmatic purposes to push back against all the woke pressure they were getting, and it blew up in their face. But I could be wrong. Vanguard, Fidelity, BlackRock have all applied for ETFs. So you have those three. I think it's those three companies. What's his name? The guy who was just on Joe Rogan. Patrick, as he explained, those three countries of the S&P, they hold something like 88% of the stock in the S&P 500, I believe is what it was. So they have a significant part of the economy. All of them have applied for Bitcoin ETFs and are speaking not only positive about Bitcoin, but explaining why everybody needs to take a position on Bitcoin, right? Does anybody follow Mike Adams, Health Ranger? I highly recommend. No idea who that is, Cheryl, but tell me in the chat. So you have three candidates, maybe four, and Biden. You have all of them talking favorably about Bitcoin. You have the largest financial institutions in the world applying for ETFs. And you know what's so frustrating for me? It's like when I was telling people, certain people I remember specifically, I was always a quiet Bitcoiner. I didn't tell anybody, I didn't talk about it, just like I don't talk about a lot of my personal stuff, which is part of the reason I was attacked during the Freedom Convoy, ironically, because I didn't talk about myself, apparently. And when Bitcoin was $2,000 and I was telling people, just take a position on Bitcoin, just buy a little bit of Bitcoin, $2,000, just throw a little, buy $500, buy $100 of Bitcoin, buy a few sat, buy something, just get involved. And oh no, it's going to go down. Okay, then it goes up to 3, and then 4, and then 5. Oh well, it'll come back down. It may not come back down. Just dollar cost average. Oh no, I'm going to wait. And then it goes to 6, 7, then 10. Oh, Bitcoin is over. It's not over. Just take a position. It's always over. Bitcoin's always over, and then it goes down. And it goes down. It's like, oh, I'm gonna wait till it goes back down to $1,000 every time. I'm like, oh my God, and this happened with multiple people. Bitcoin and it would hit 12,000, 15,000. Like, oh, I missed the opportunity. Bitcoin's over. It's always over. 15,000, 20,000, 30,000, always over. It's always over. And then what happened? Right around 40, 45,000 in the last bull run. And if you understand the cycles, you understand why that's a good thing. Right around 40, 45,000, then I started getting people messaging me, not angry, but frustrated. I wish I bought Bitcoin. I should have bought Bitcoin. I'm like, I told you, but get it now. Oh, no. Now it's over. And then it goes up to 45 and 50 and 55 and 60 and 65 and whatever. And all the time I try to explain to these people, this is the regular cycle of Bitcoin, how it grows, and its penetration into the marketplace. This is what the cycles are. It's predictive. And it's not inflationary currency, it's deflationary currency. That's why we know mathematically it goes up over time. It doesn't matter the price. But anyways, so it's always late. It's always late with Bitcoin. But so for the people who are in here who are wondering, why does he keep talking about Bitcoin this time? Because I don't usually talk about Bitcoin in here. It's because Bitcoin was the only money that worked. It was the only thing that we could use to get to the truckers. Everything else was blocked. Everything else is, the money that we raised is still in escrow pending the class action suit, and it's going to be there for years. And the lawyers are going to try, on the other side, are going to try to litigate it so that there's nothing left, because they were trying so hard to ensure that this movement, which was the actual political opposition, to ensure that no money went to these people and to this group. That's why they sabotaged us. They needed to take control of the social media, the Facebook page that had, the Facebook group that had 500, 600,000 people. They needed to take control of that. They needed to take control or block the money so that nobody got it, which is why Doug Ford, the conservative, sought an injunction to block it. It's why Justin Trudeau's team had this lawfare case executed, very sneaky, by the way, because they wanted to ensure that there was no actual opposition to the uniparty that is running Canada and the cartels that support them. That's how it operates. I don't mean drug cartels. But amongst all of that noise and amongst all of the chaos, there was one form of money that could not be blocked, and that was the Bitcoin protocol. That's right, it's not a coin, it's a protocol. It is decentralized, it is censorship resistant, and that's why no government around the world since Bitcoin's inception has been able to block it. And that's why everybody needs to have a little bit of Bitcoin, right? Especially as we're running into more difficult, uncertain economic waters, if that makes sense. All right. Okay, yeah, something else good thing I jotted this down, I would have forgotten. So I'm not really a Facebook user, okay? I'm not really. During the convoy, I didn't have Facebook, which now I understand where all the smears and the attacks and all that stuff came from Facebook. So it was all of my friends, our supporters of the Freedom Convoy, went on to Facebook, and that's where they spread all the rumors about many of us, not just myself. So but I've always had Facebook pages for the podcast that I produced. And then a couple of them ended, and another one has come on board, and they're always kind of shifting and to see what's best for the brand as we move forward, as we build out this podcast network. And so one of the pages has been repurposed and is going to be used for another purpose. So if you follow any of the podcast pages and platforms, and you notice the names are changing and all that sort of stuff, that's why. It's just being repurposed for other stuff. So don't worry, things will become much more clear and much more evident where we're going with this. I didn't understand. I love the rude comments from those suffering narrative poisoning, because again, I was not on Facebook, so people going in attacking me, and I'm like, yeah, I hope you enjoy not wearing a mask. You're welcome. Like, it's so crazy. But that's what narrative poisoning does to everybody. Anyways, and then there's the hashtag Freedom Convoy Truth that you'll see popping up from time to time. That's just there's a bunch of people trying to help communicate what actually happened beyond the surface level stuff. Like, yeah, it was a great convoy. We all went there. But, the behind the scenes political stuff, the whole... When I started this and I started streaming, I brought up the point that the Freedom Convoy was sabotaged. That's why it ended. This beautiful moment in Canadian history of unity ended up being sabotaged by a bunch of trash. And those are people in the political class. That's how it works. So we're going to talk more and more about that. And if you see the hashtag Freedom Convoy Truth, that's probably what it'll be about. And it's important because we're getting into some of the legal cases around the Freedom Convoy. And I think it's just important to keep people honest and keep people straight and understanding what went on and holding people to account for what they did to just the most magical moment in Canadian history. It was amazing. But I just don't think it's wise to allow history to be written by those that are promulgating a narrative or a lie, and that we all know that has happened all too much throughout history. And I just don't think we should allow that to continue, especially when we have an opportunity to actually clarify the record. That I think there's a moral duty and a moral sense, at least from myself and other people, that, hey, if we have the opportunity to clarify the truth for history and for people in the future, we have a moral obligation to do so. So there's a bunch of us that will do that, right? And Jesse, I hope Rocky agrees. Rocky is awesome. And that's I just want to end on the whole you know what, Cheryl, I have no idea. She says, what do you think about the Million People March for the Children? I don't know what that is. Is that like the Million Man March? I'm not sure what that is. But I will check it out online and I'll take a look at it and see what it is. In September, I don't know. I really don't know. But, you know, I would be skeptical of a lot of things that are... There's so much of this stuff that is conducted by the political operatives who don't really have your best interest at heart, but they do have an interest in manipulating you and using you as pawns, right? Rocky is still confused by Bitcoin, and well, you know what? Let's bring Rocky into Twitter Space, and we'll teach him the beginner Bitcoin Twitter Space with DJ Satoshi. We'll bring Rocky in. We'll teach him how to set up a wallet. Jesse, ooh, yeah, Jesse, like that. That's the problem when you see certain political activism from certain groups. Right now, we have an attempt to take over the conservative wing of politics in Canada by those groups. Not those individual people, but, you know, some nefarious groups within them. And yeah, it's really concerning. And it's shocking to see how many conservatives are not aware of this and just going along with it. But that's what the political class does. They have no clue how the hell to govern anything. They couldn't govern their breakfast. But they know how to manipulate people and how to manipulate you. And that's what they focus all their energy, money, and attention on doing. Which is why you need Bitcoin. To get off this racehorse and be self-sovereign. And I think a good way to look at it is Bitcoin is a good way to protect yourself against the manipulation, because when you especially people like Ben, who lives on a Bitcoin standard, then you just become, it's like you have a shield around you, around the political manipulation, because you're not so invested in their monetary system, because you don't really care. Okay, they can go destroy their monetary system as much as they want. That's fine. As a Bitcoiner, you're not really... One Bitcoin will always equal one Bitcoin. And, you know, one of the frustrations I have, not frustrations, but from a messaging standpoint, is a lot of people always talk about the price of Bitcoin in US dollars. I understand it's a global reserve currency, but most of us don't think in US dollars, right? And I just look at it as Bitcoin every 4 years, when the amount of Bitcoin that is released is because it's deflationary, I guess you'd say. Because the amount of new Bitcoin that is created through miners, every 4 years, the purchasing power of Bitcoin increases exponentially. So I don't care about the dollar value, you just care about the purchasing power of any currency, dollars, pesos, whatever it is, because one Bitcoin always equals one Bitcoin, no matter what happens. When you put money in the bank, you know after 50 years that the value, the purchasing power of that US dollar, Canadian dollar, whatever it is cut in half in 50 years. Not with Bitcoin. It's one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. And the purchasing power of that goes up exponentially every 4 years. We'll get more to that in, I know the way I'm describing it, some Bitcoiners are going to be like, the nuance, but that's not exactly accurate, because I understand. I'm trying to communicate to all of you and people like Rocky, who are still struggling to understand Bitcoin on a very basic level. So, and I hope that helps. All of this to say that no matter the economic troubles that we may or may not have, we do have an option. This is another reason to be positive now, that at least now there is an option from the legacy financial system, much like there is an option from legacy media, and that option from the legacy financial system is Bitcoin. And you can read in this book about why Bitcoin was so helpful and why it's so important to your life, especially if we're going into uncertain economic times, because it really saved us during uncertain political times, which we're still in right now. And I think I'm very bullish on things in the future. Things are going to be great. We're going to enter the Enlightenment 2.0, but there's going to be some rocky waters before we get there. All right, also August 14th, I'm going to have a little bit of an announcement. And if you are in Florida, hopefully you will be able to attend, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then there will be something potentially for the new year that will be quite big. And I'm going to talk to all of you a little bit about this more over time, but I think you'll find it exciting. You'll find it exciting. Cheryl says, thank you, BJ, for trying to help understand Bitcoin. And the other thing is, Cheryl, like, I know it's for you, for yourself, for Rocky, for Jesse, it's confusing. It was confusing to me. And listen, I'm a techie. I'm the worst programmer in the world, but I understand how to do it. And I've grown up with computers. And even for me, and understanding from a young age, central banking and our fiscal, the problems with our financial system, even for me, it took me a year to really wrap my head around it and the implications of what Bitcoin is. So if you find that you're learning about Bitcoin and you think it's really difficult to understand, don't put yourself down, because guess what? All of us were like that. You know how many Bitcoiners? Let me tell you something that's funny. I know some of the really, really influential people in Bitcoin that have been in Bitcoin for a very, very long time. Do you know most of us thought it was a scam from the very beginning? Everybody thought that. People didn't understand it. It takes a while to learn. So Cheryl, don't, if you're confused by it, that's perfectly normal, because everybody was confused by it. But eventually, you don't, there's some people want to encourage people to like dig your head in the books for a weekend and really push yourself and dive deep into Bitcoin, to go down the rabbit hole one weekend. And that's, some people will do that, but that's not how most people are. That's not how I did Bitcoin. It was like a side interest that I would periodically go to different websites, go to different forums, read a little bit about it, you forget about it for a week, come back, the next time I had time or whatever. And slowly, over time, I got to understand it. So, Cheryl, if you're confused by it and you're frustrated by it, that's perfectly normal. That's the way it works. And part of it is because it's so simple. Like, you realize once you have the eureka moment with Bitcoin, you realize that I can't believe it can't be that simple. But it is. It really is, So I hope that helps. And Cheryl, you can reach out to me anytime if you have any questions. Also, you can join in the Twitter spaces with DJ Satoshi. I brought a few other people into those spaces just because they're super positive and they're very sweet and very patient with everybody. So if you want to be in a space with people who just have like a really positive vibe as opposed to like the negative cynicism of the people in political convoy that they spent the past year and a half trashing people, calling people names, spreading rumors about us, all that sort of stuff. Okay, that's political convoy. That's not what Freedom Convoy was. That's not what I was thinking about when I put together the media strategy and communication strategy of peace, love, unity, and freedom. And that's what these people are like in Bitcoin. Like, they're super sweet and super accommodating. So if you're interested, or whenever you're interested, let me know. And then maybe at some point we'll be doing something in real life, right? Jesse says, Cheryl, if you figure it out, let me know. Jesse, you're so sweet. All right, I got to run to a meeting in, I got to leave in 5 minutes. So I love you all. Be good to each other. Enjoy the fact that the day is beautiful. It's still summer. Focus on positivity. I see so much cynicism from, you know, the anger amongst the political convoy people as everything starts to fall apart around them and people are starting to understand that they were lied to. They've built their, you know, they've dug their grave for themselves. So let's ignore them. Yeah, make fun a little bit, but ignore them and focus on, you know, a positive path forward is what I want to do. And, you know, with that convoy, we built the base foundation of something that was positive that we can build upon. And Bitcoin is just another layer on that foundation of positivity and freedom. So have a great day. Be good to other people. Be sweet to other people. Be kind to strangers. Your subconscious is always watching. And when you are good to people and you're nice to people, that's how you build